Okay, I describe myself as a Beardsley enthusiast. I'm not an art historian, I'm just an ordinary person, and I would like to share some observations from the world of my favourite artist. Beardsley was born in Brighton, and it was he who lured me there to live. The 16th of March marked the 121st anniversary of his death from tuberculosis at the age of just 25. I will introduce him briefly, but rather than focus on his life and work, I've put together a selection of my favourite examples of where Beardsley crops up in popular culture. It was around the age of 14 that I first encountered his work in this book from my school library. Being a bit of a goth, this picture appealed to me. I photocopied it and then I forgot about it until some years later when I saw this book and recognised it as the same artist. Since then, there has been no going back. This is probably the most famous portrait of him, taken by his friend Frederick Evans in 1894. Apparently, Evans told Beardsley that he had the face of a gargoyle, so Aubrey immediately imitated the pose of one from the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. I'd just like to read you this quote from the book Life in Brighton from 1970 by Clifford Musgrave, and he was the former director of the Royal Pavilion. And he said, "Is it altogether too extravagant a notion to imagine that in the sophistication, the incisive elegance, the brilliance, the clear-cut vision, and not least in the provocative eroticism of Beardsley's work, we may perceive qualities that are implicit in the atmosphere and spirit of Brighton itself?" So here is the place that he was born in 1872, 12 Buckingham Road, which is now actually number 31. So if you go looking for it, don't be confused, because I was the first time. And I think if you can just see here, just here on the side, there is a plaque on the wall, which is still there, you can see. And I'll just show you a close-up. This is the plaque here, and you can read what it says about him. On the plaque outside, he is described as Master of Line. But I can't help, when I'm outside the house, I can't help but imagine his mum flinging open the front door and shouting, "He's not the Master of Line, he's a very naughty boy!" In an interview, Beardsley said, "I have one aim, the grotesque. If I am not grotesque, I am nothing." This is an early drawing and an example of that grotesqueness. I think dentists should stick a copy of this picture to their ceiling. Probably the most widely recognised of his works are the illustrations for Wilde's play Salome, which was published in 1894. Beardsley had read the French edition and made a drawing of Salome with John the Baptist's head, which was printed in the Studio magazine. Wilde saw this and commissioned him for the English publication. However, he did not commission the caricatures of himself that Beardsley slipped into the drawings. The Salome illustrations were popularised in the 1960s and 70s by the poster shop Athena and appeared on many household items. So this is just an example of one that you may be familiar with, some people who know his work from that. Another significant publication was the Yellow Book, the art and literary journal. Beardsley was a founder and art editor, and initially it brought him success until the Wilde scandal of 1895. The Yellow Book was meant to suggest the appearance of a French novel, these were usually bound in yellow covers, giving it shock value, as French novels would not have been considered appropriate reading for the great British public. When Wilde was arrested, newspapers reported him as carrying a yellow book as he was led away. The public assumed that it was the Yellow Book, and Beardsley was sacked from his own magazine. So, why was he considered a very naughty boy? This is one of his illustrations for the Greek comedy Lysistrata by Aristophanes. In the play, the women all go on a sex strike until the men cease warring with each other. Beardsley's inspiration for these were the figures on ancient Greek pottery, but he has propelled them into the 18th century. This one, for those of you who are familiar with Brighton, this is sometimes titled Friday Night on West Street. And surely this must be the most delicately drawn fart in the history of art. It was pictures like these which earned Beardsley his reputation. In 1966, a London card shop was raided by the Obscene Publications Squad, who seized all the Aubrey Beardsley postcards that they could find. When told the same pictures were on display at the V&A in the huge Beardsley exhibition, the Metropolitan Police Commissioner went round to investigate unannounced. There was public outrage at apparent police raid on a national public institution. With red faces all round, apologies were made and the postcards were returned to the shop. 1896 is considered to be the beginning of cinema in Britain, so Beardsley didn't have very long to experience this new medium. I think that he would have loved the cinema, and here are a few examples of Beardsley on film. First, I must mention one which has never been made, but surely should be. Because if Stephen Fry was born to be wild, then surely Mackenzie Crook was born to be Beardsley. Is it too late? In his 40s, can he play a 25-year-old? Age didn't stop Anna Nazimova from playing the teen Salome when she was 42 in an early Beardsley tribute, the 1923 version of Wild's Play, which she starred in, wrote and directed. The costumes and sets were designed by her lover, Natasha Rambova, and inspired by the original illustrations. So I'm just going to show you a few stills from the film. So you can have a look. There's Salome with the cage, the prison is below for John the Baptist in. This is her with the Dance of the Seven Veils from the play. This is obviously inspired by the peacock skirt image you saw previously. And if you're wondering why Anna looks so surprised, it's because she's just heard that in 2015, her original Salome wig turned up in a trunk of costumes in a storage building in Columbus, Georgia. In films, it is often the case that a liking for Beardsley is shorthand for character of dubious nature, and so you might spot a copy of the Yellow Book on a table or a framed picture on the wall in the background to signify their decadent or evil personality. A great example is Black Lizard, a 1968 Japanese film directed by Kinji Fukasaku. The film is based on a play by Yukio Mishima, who appears in the film as a taxidermic human specimen. The play, in turn, is based on a novel by Edogawa Rampo, an exponent of the genre Ero Guru, which depicts erotic, grotesque nonsense. This is the story. A jewel thief, Black Lizard, pits her wits against top detective Akechi as he tries to thwart her latest scheme in a complex plot and a riot of flamboyant costumes. So I'm just going to show you a couple of pictures from here. This is Black Lizard peeping, spying on someone through an Aubrey Beardsley drawing picture there. And here, Black Lizard is confronted with the ultimate horror. Which Beardsley poster should she buy from Athena? Next we have George Barry's film, Deathbed, the bed that eats. It was actually shot in 1972, but no print was released until 1977. And this is the story. Long ago, a demon fell in love with a woman and conjured up a bed on which to make love to her. The woman died during the act, and in his grief, the demon wept tears of blood, which fell on the bed and caused it to come to life. While the demon rests, the bed's evil is contained. But once every 10 years, the demon wakes, giving the bed the power to physically eat human beings. Only one man, an artist identified as Aubrey Beardsley, was spared, as the bed condemned him to immortality behind a painting, where he must forever witness the bed taking victims. So here I just show you, this is the picture of the painting, this is the painting, and there he is trapped behind the painting. The film is divided up into 4 parts: breakfast, lunch, dinner, and just desserts. And it's not to be confused with the 2002 film of the same name, which fails to feature Beardsley. And Patrick Spence Thomas, who plays Beardsley in the film, who was also the sound mixer. On to Suspiria by Dario Argento, also released in 1977. The story is of a young American dancer who enrolls at a German ballet school, only to discover that there is more going on than meets the eye. This is an example of a genre known as giallo, a 20th century Italian thriller or horror genre of literature and film. The word giallo is Italian for yellow. The term derives from a series of cheap paperback mystery novels with yellow covers that were popular in post-fascist Italy. So this links back to the Yellow Book and the connections with the decadent French novels of the 19th century. Oddly enough, while Beardsley was famous for his monochrome palette, Suspiria was filmed in Technicolor, and production designer Giuseppe Bassan makes an astounding use of vibrant colour. So again, I'll just show you some pictures from the film. And here we have, this is the actress Jessica Harper, she plays the lead, and she's here at the school. And as you can see, there's some Beardsley pictures up on the wall, so she should be suspicious. Gradually, as she's going around, she senses that something sinister is going on. And the final horror, when she realises that the school has been decorated by Laurence Llewelyn-Bowen. You might think I'm joking, but take a short leap sideways and forwards to the summer of 1998, and this is how Laurence Llewelyn-Bowen transformed a Plymouth couple's bedroom. Let's hope they hadn't seen Deathbed. And I'm moving on to this film, After Beardsley. This is a short film which you can find on YouTube, and I definitely recommend that you have a look for it if you can. It was made in 1982, and it's a hand-drawn animation by Chris James. And in his words, he says, the film After Beardsley attempts to depict today's world through Beardsley's eyes and in his drawing style. Beardsley is resurrected from his deathbed and begins to walk through time to the present. On his journey, he witnesses the evolution of the car and of air and sea travel, and then climbs a phallic mountain before descending into 20th century New York City. The premise of the film is that if Beardsley had been alive today, instead of the 1890s, modern medicine would have kept him alive, but that having had a glimpse of where the world was heading, he may have chosen to die anyway. As mentioned, the main Beardsley revival began during the 1960s. I'm not a fan of the Beatles, but I love the 1968 film Yellow Submarine, and I was convinced that amongst all the detailed backgrounds, some trace of Aubrey's work must have been smuggled in. So I went through the film, scouring every scene, and eventually I found what I was looking for. So I'll just point this out here. If you look this bit here, you can see a head here. And then that's the same head there. So it's just a little tiny bit, but it got in there somewhere. Beardsley is also one of the crowd gathered for the Sgt. Pepper cover by Peter Blake in 1967. Just point him out, he's just here, over there, just on the edge there. He looks a little bit like he's giving Oscar Wilde an evil look, but he is in good company. I'll just show you, there's it's not very clear picture. I can't see. Oh, is that him there? That's him there, I think, isn't it, Oscar Wilde? Sorry, it's not see it from there. But he's also with Aleister Crowley, who's at the back there, and Edgar Allan Poe, who's here. And Aleister Crowley was a fan of Aubrey Beardsley's work, and Edgar Allan Poe is one of the writers that Beardsley illustrated. This seems to be the only occasion where Beardsley's face appeared on a postage stamp, albeit the size of a pinhead. In 2007, Royal Mail issued 6 stamps commemorating various albums by the Beatles, and Sgt. Pepper was included. So there would be one of the stamps, and you can see it would be very, very tiny. His drawings did make a bigger appearance on the San Marino stamp of 2004 for Wilde's 150th birthday. And then again, that's the drawing of Salome, and then this is one of the caricatures of Oscar Wilde that he did. Moving up swiftly on from the Beatles and onto the subject of music. As a child, Beardsley played the piano, and it was thought that perhaps this may be his forte in life. He loved the operas of Wagner and illustrated many of the characters. And then, in 1977, he went to number 3 in the UK charts thanks to this man. Rod apparently wrote this song as a tribute to his current girlfriend, Britt Epland. Many of you will be familiar with the chorus of this song, but how many of you are aware of this verse? Another singer of Scots descent is Nick Curry, who performs under the name Momus. His 1996 album, 20 Vodka Jellies, features the track London 1888. The song is depicted on the album cover. Here's London 1888, and it is sung from the perspective of a 21st century Japanese man from Tokyo who travels back in time and describes the things he experiences. So there he's on the other side. Next we have Stand Inside Your Love, which is a song written by Billy Corgan of the Smashing Pumpkins. While the lyrics do not make reference to Beardsley, the accompanying video, which was released in 2000, is a recreation of the Salome story, incorporating elements of his illustrations. The look of the video was developed by the director Wiz to give an early silent film aesthetic, and it features Yelena Yemchuk, for whom the song was written as Salome. Again, I'm not going to show the whole video, but I'll just show you a few pictures, and I recommend you have a look at this song. But also, there is on YouTube, there is also a short film about the making. It's only 5 minutes about the making of that video, and that's also very interesting. I'll just show you some pictures, and you'll be able to see how the Aubrey Beardsley's drawings have been used. In July 1887, Beardsley had one of his poems published in Brighton Society magazine. A ride in an omnibus tells readers about the trials of using this form of transport, depicting the various characters one was likely to be squashed up with, and it doesn't sound entirely different from today. He may be surprised to learn that he has had his own bus in Brighton since 2003. The first attempt was spelled incorrectly as Beardsley. This was corrected and the bus was repainted a couple of times over the years. In 2016, his name was transferred to a new vehicle which was decorated inside and out by the local artist Jason McQuillan. So this shows that this is the current Beardsley bus. So if you're ever in Brighton and you see this bus go past, and there's Jason in the check shirt. But I think it's quite nice that they've got a contemporary black and white artist to do this, decoration of the Beardsley bus. And finally, we end with the world of ceramics. In 1979, Poole Pottery produced the Beardsley collection, sophisticated yet so simple shapes to be admired, desired and collected. It was so popular that the following year they added to the range. I occasionally buy pieces from this collection, and I was interested to see this vase for sale on eBay. The seller says, there is slight uneven finish in the glaze to the top rim, and that is the reason that the vase is marked as factory seconds. This is genuinely on Not to be outdone, in 2006, Lawrence Llewellyn-Bowen produced his magnificent range of flouncy mugs. Here's his Beardsley design. You could complement this with an Oscar, an arabesque, a burlesque and tassel-tastic. And last but not least is my latest purchase, which brings me back to my original inspiration. It's a Salome chopping board. Before I'm cut off, I would like to finish with a quote from Beardsley's obituary by Gleason White, who was the editor of the Studio magazine. And he said, "Death has given Aubrey Beardsley the immortality of youth, and in the future histories of illustration, whether for blame or praise, men must need add that it was a mere boy who did these things, and did them as no other had attempted to do them before." Thank you.